Hello and welcome to Kevin in the Cabin, and in this episode I'm going to talk about what it's like playing trumpet on a cruise ship. Now I'm going to be splitting this up into several different segments because I originally recorded all this in one go and it was well over an hour, and I was like, well, I can kind of dig in a little deeper on each little spot and have a few more episodes to give you. Now, I originally started working on a cruise ship back in 2018 immediately after school. I had a contract and everything while I was still in school, so that was actually a really nice feeling to have. And that was with a different line than what I'm working on right now. I started this line in 2022, about February-ish, so I've been working here for about 3 years, and I did the other one for about 2 years, and 2 years after 2018 is 2020. Obviously, 2020 happened, so I was not working on cruise ships at that time. Nobody was. Playing music in general, not just as a trumpet player, but in general, playing music on a cruise ship is one of the coolest gigs you can have, because there is no other gig I can think of where all you do is walk up 2 flights of stairs and you're at the venue. In between contracts, when I'm back on land, I will obviously have gigs back home with the bands I'm in, but you gotta put the horns in the case, put the case in the car, get in the car, start the car, drive the car, get the case out of the car, horns out of the car, play, put them back in the case back in the car, so on. Here, I'm already at the venue. I practice down in my cabin, so I gotta put the horns in the case, then walk up 2 flights of stairs, and then I'm there. So it is very convenient for the X amount of months I'm here, and I will go over more of how long each contract was between my old cruise line and my current cruise line. In these videos, I want to talk about my experiences between the old cruise line and my current cruise line, of what it's like working on the cruise ship. Later, I'm going to be getting on and talking about what it was like living on the cruise ships. I like to split those up into 2 separate things. And this is actually my second time going through this particular video, and I want to delve a little deeper on each subject. A very fast disclaimer, and I may post this a couple times in the video. This is not a comparison video of one's better than the other when it comes to cruise lines, working on their workload as well as lifestyle. It's just my experiences on them, how they were. The number 2 is the number 2, the letter A is the letter A. It is what it is. Just a disclaimer. So in this video, I specifically want to go over what the rehearsals are like. So I'm not even talking about getting on the cruise ship yet and playing on there. You got to go to a rehearsal before just jumping onto a cruise ship and playing with the group. Now, like I mentioned before, I've worked for 2 separate lines, and both of these rehearsals were rather different, for better or worse. Like I said, this is not really a comparison, it's just what my experiences were. And as for the rehearsals, the stuff I'm going to be going over is, do we work for the company or is it a third party? How much time do we have to prepare? How we prepare? What to prepare? How long are the rehearsals? Where do we stay? Are this an apartment, a house, a condo, what have you? The rehearsal facilities, where are we rehearsing and what's in there? The actual rehearsals. Preview shows. Do we rehearse on board? Who hires us? How much time do we have to prepare? What to prepare? How to prepare? How long are the rehearsals? Where we stay? The rehearsal facilities themselves, the actual rehearsal, preview shows, do we rehearse on board, as well as rehearsal pay. So as I mentioned before, I've worked for 2 cruise lines, and we're going to go over the first one first, the one I started back in 2018, immediately after school. So who is it that we work for? Is it a first party thing? So is it directly through the cruise line, or is it an agency, or is it maybe a third party company that puts the entire band together? For the first cruise line, it was directly through the cruise line itself. So you'd reach out to them or have an agent, which I did at first. They would apply for you, send in all of your stuff, you'd rehearse, and then you would get hired through the company. And then we have, how much time do we have to prepare all of the music that we get? And this really all depended on when you accepted the contract or any other factors that may be, is the band leader on it? Did they send it within ample time? Did they get the music within ample time to send it? There's a lot of variables in that. But with my experience with that first cruise line, we'd usually get about a month and a half to 2 months to work up all the music, and that's how much time we had, which is plenty of time, personally, I think. However, there was one funny time between my first and second contract where I only had 15 days to work up 100-something songs, and goodness gracious. And then we have what to prepare for the rehearsals. So the first cruise line, would send us a Dropbox link with the entire library of the horn trio charts as well as the rock band charts. And usually it was about 300 plus songs that are in there with all the charts for every single instrument and vocalist. I think there was only one time I got an exact list of what to work up prior to the rehearsals, and that was the contract that I only had 15 days to prepare. The other two contracts, I didn't have a concrete set list of what we were needing to prepare for the rehearsal, so I would look through as much as I can out of those 300 plus songs, obviously not hitting all of them, in hopes that I'd be ready for those rehearsals. Next up, we have how to prepare. Getting ready for these rehearsals, as long as we had like the set list ready to go, we had charts in the Dropbox, so it was super easy to prepare for these rehearsals. All you had to do is just make sure you had your part down. When you have charts, it's real easy. And then we have how long are the rehearsals? So for the first line, I was a part of the horns, and we were our own separate group. So we only had 2 weeks of rehearsals, but the horns played by themselves as well as played with the band and a couple other groups as well. So when we were in, we rehearsed with ourselves, the horns and track, as well as like the house band. The house band was already there 2 weeks prior for us getting there, so they have a month worth of rehearsals. And then we joined them 2 weeks into it. And in those 2 weeks they are there in the rehearsals is usually about when we may get that set list together, and then it forwarded to us, the horns. And this one's a really big one for me, is where we stay during these rehearsals. You know, we're away from home, you know, working a very rigorous job of these rehearsals, very long hours and stuff. Where we stay is very, very, very important. Now, the first cruise line kept us in a rather nice apartment complex, which was right down the road from the rehearsal studios, as well as a grocery store. They had us sharing rooms within the apartment complex, usually one extra person, maybe 2 extra people, so a total of 3 people, depending on the size of the room. But these apartments did have laundry, as well as a kitchen. And with the grocery store being right down the road, we could go pick up actual groceries and cook them for ourselves, pack them up, and bring them to the rehearsals with us to help save a little money. On top of all of that, the rehearsal complex also had like a really nice pool and hot tub and a gym, so it didn't feel like we were going without, although we were away from home. Now, something that I find very exciting are the facilities we were actually rehearsing in. Like I said, it was about a 5-minute walk from the apartment, so we woke up, you know, say grab some coffee, some breakfast, and walk down there 5 minutes, and we're there. The facilities that we were rehearsing in usually housed about 3 to 5 full ship groups at a time, being horns, strings, Latin duo or trios or full bands, the rock band, as well as the cast members. So there were a lot of rooms, and it was very, very busy in there. All of the rooms were really, really nice. It had everything you needed in there when it came to cables, amps, other equipment. They used electric drum sets. All microphones are there. It's really nice and organized, hung up on the walls. All cables wrapped up all nice and neat. All the rooms were soundproof, so when you closed the door, you could hardly hear it. And each room could fit like a large band in there, like a full rhythm section, 2 singers, and 3-piece horns. So space was never a problem. Work stuff aside, the facilities also had like a small cafeteria where they had like free coffee, free teas, a big fridge for anyone who decided to bring their lunch in, microwaves so they can heat up that lunch, as well as like a small store that was like a self-serve, like you scan it and then you can buy it right there. Honestly, these facilities were very, very nice. Now, this is where the disclaimer comes in: the actual rehearsals. The actual rehearsals could go very, very smooth, or they could go very, very rough. It really all depended on who was running it. I preferred rehearsing with the horns and the track because all we would do is run the stuff. We would take notes of what went wrong, go back and fix it, play it again, go on break, run it all again. It was very, very smooth, just the 3 of us and playing with the tracks, usually. The real stress and drama would come working with the band, only if it was mismanaged. The mismanaged ones, more often than not, the horns were just sitting there while we were teaching the vocalist harmonies, while we were explaining to like the guitarist what the chords are, because maybe they couldn't read very well, trying to teach bass grooves or whatever it was. So the horns were sitting through all of that. But when it came to our turn to have to, you know, just sit and work something out, we'd usually get berated for not having it the first time around. I even remember one specific time, I like recorded us just sitting there for like 20 minutes as they were teaching harmony to the singers. But the moment we messed up, it was like, you guys got to get it together. Again, this was only with the band, with the very, very bad band leaders that just mismanaged everything and just didn't understand really how to run a band. But these rehearsals really were like a 9-to-5 job when it came to the hours. There were night shift bands as well as day shift bands. And you really did, you kind of clock in and out on those hours like any other job. And it felt even more like a job when management would pop in, not say a word, just sit and stare at you while you were working and, rehearsing, and then just get up and leave with no notes or anything. I truly believe these rehearsals could have been really, really, really easy if people would just get out of the way and allow it to be really, really easy. Moving on to the next point, the preview shows. And please remember that disclaimer, I'm not just dogging one cruise line and they're gonna be praising the other one. These are just my experiences. One part I didn't like about the rehearsals, but I did understand doing as well, were preview shows. Preview shows were us putting together a very short list, maybe 5 songs to perform in front of everyone who was there. Like I said, there were about 3 to 5 groups in at a time, and each group consisted of the horns, the strings, the Latin band, the rock band, and the cast. All that together is about 30-something people. So they would fit about 60 or more people in the largest room, which isn't really that big. It's very small for 60 people. And we would perform for them to make sure we were like ready for the ship, performance ready, and not just being able to play the music while sitting down. But with it being for all these musical groups, you're playing for your peers as well as the management, and getting criticized and commented on, not just by management, but your peers as well, which could be really dangerous, but also really helpful too. More often than not, the peer criticism that we would get really didn't just apply to like the preview show as a whole. It was like very fine nitpicky stuff that only musicians would pick up on. They would often forget that we were playing for people on vacation, more often than not very, very drunk. Not that that's an excuse, but it is reality. However, these preview shows really gave me a glimpse of where the egos really, really were on who would give an essay's worth of comments on how we played Love Shack. Alright, to take a break on the negative stuff, let's talk about onboard rehearsals. So we really wouldn't have any onboard rehearsals with this cruise line. Usually the 2 weeks of rehearsals covered everything. If we decided to add anything, we had charts, so we just read down the charts. I personally think we had rehearsals maybe 5 times for the 19 months I was out there. That's 19 months split up, not together. And lastly, for the rehearsal pay. So you do get paid for rehearsals, but it is a significantly less amount compared to what you're getting paid on the ship for the contract itself. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 25%. It really wasn't a lot. And you wouldn't see that until you already got on the ship. So like when you're getting to the rehearsals, you should be prepared to be on your own for 2 weeks for groceries or anything else you may want to have. Now I'd like to go through the same process of the same bullet points, but for my current cruise line. Starting out with, who do we work for? So we work for a third-party company, which means not directly with the cruise line itself. The cruise line hires this band, us, through this third-party company. So this means we're not like a house band, party band. We are our own separate entity. Next up is, how much time do we have to prepare for the rehearsals? This one, just as the previous cruise line, is the same, where it really all depends. My first contract, I had about a month and a half to learn everything. My next contract was the same deal. I've done a couple substitute contracts, so I just jumped on and learned as I went. But usually it really all depends, and on average it's about a month and a half. Which leads us to what to prepare. So we're given a PDF list of about a 10 to 12 day plan, give or take 10 songs, 12 songs per day, equaling out to about 100 to 120 songs to have ready for the rehearsals. And then how do we prepare for it? Now this is how it's different from the previous contract. The previous contract, like I mentioned, we were given a Dropbox just full of charts. This one, we're given a Dropbox just full of recordings, as well as the PDF list. And what we do, we all transcribe it individually, our parts verbatim, and then we come together and play it just like the record. Now, when we're together, we may add something different from the recording, but ideally what we do is prepare it per the record, drum beat the same, guitar plucking the same, chords, everything the same, horn parts being per the record. And then after all the preparation, we get to the rehearsal space and we're there for about 14 days as a band. Not the horns are there for 14 days, but the rest of the band's there for an entire month. We're all there for 2 weeks. They keep us in a hotel in a rather nice spot. There's like a Target right around the corner. There's a lot of places to eat, real close walking distance by. We can Uber wherever we need to through the company. The only bummer about where we're staying is that there's no laundry in the hotel. Oh, and we do also share the room for the full 2 weeks with what they call like our wingman. So for the horns, the sax and the trumpet live together. Keyboard, guitarist, bass player, drummer. Vocalists get their own room though. As for where we rehearse, the company now has like a dedicated rehearsal space for the bands, which is very similar to what we had with the previous contract, but just one room. But there's only one band in at a time. It's got all the cables we need, all the in-ear monitoring we need, microphones, drums, keyboards, amps, horn mics, anything we may need. They're currently finishing a break room that has like a nice long table for the entire band, a fridge, a microwave, hot water kettle, tea, and stuff like that. I will say the facilities for the previous cruise line was a lot more high end, but we got everything we need with this cruise line too. Now on to the juicy stuff, the actual rehearsals. Now these rehearsals are a lot more serious, but they are still very fair as well, most of the time. Now, most songs are very straightforward in that, we transcribe the songs, we learn them, we know them, we just play it top to bottom, all right, on to the next song. But sometimes there's a particular song that maybe whoever's rehearsing us really likes, and they want it a particular way. They may have not heard something, or maybe we're not doing something right, and it could get a little heated in that room. And sometimes the heat being, if there's a mistake that happens one too many times, people could get a little overboard in what they say. Now, this doesn't happen very often, which is fantastic, but I've seen it enough where it does kind of dampen the mood for the rest of the day. But the people running the rehearsals really know their stuff. The fact that the person running the rehearsals can come up to me and sing the harmonies for what the saxophone player is doing or what my line is doing out of memory and without a particular pitch is incredible to me. So these dudes really do know their stuff, which makes it very easy for me to listen to what they're saying. Now, when it comes to preview shows, we really don't do like a traditional preview show like we did with the previous line. What we would do is rehearse everything, like rehearse everything that we were going to do for that day, go grab lunch, come back, and perform it as if we were performing it. The only comments that we would get would come from the rehearsal directors, not our peers. Now, after we leave rehearsals and we get on the ship, we continue rehearsing. We usually rehearse for about 2 months, 2.5 months more, until we hit a certain amount of songs that we need, which is usually around like 170 or so, or until we finish learning all the songs that we would like to learn as a band. And lastly is the rehearsal pay. Our rehearsal pay for this company also covers our luggage to and from the contract. And I don't remember the exact number, but it's about like $2,000 for the 2 weeks. And again, that includes the actual work as well as luggage. And again, this is not a comparison video saying one is better than the other by any means. It is simply my experiences with the two lines and just how it did happen and does happen. And I can't say enough that it is not a comparison. So thank you so much for joining me in the cabin, and I'll see you next time. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for making it to the end of the video. I only found it appropriate to add a little snippet of what our rehearsal on board looks like. As you can see, there is one person who is all around that stage while most of us are kind of standing still. That is our lead singer, Jaquan, and that dude really is the Energizer Bunny. And I promise I am on stage, I'm just off the screen to the left. I'm currently editing the video of what the cabin looks like and what it is and what I use it for. Join me again in the cabin. See you next time.